Okay, hello everyone. I think we will go ahead and get started. So first, thank you so much for joining us on this webinar series on specifically preparing for an American university. So just wanted to say congratulations for those of you who were accepted into a university and are preparing to go to the US. We are so excited for you, and we hope that this webinar will be a helpful way to prepare for your next steps. Just to introduce myself, my name is Sarah Norman. I'm the Education USA advisor, one of the advisors at the US-UK Fulbright Commission. As you can probably tell by my accent, am an American. I studied in the US and studied abroad twice as well. So I applaud you for taking a leap and going abroad for your degree. And I'm so excited for you and the experiences that are to come. We are going to first have a presentation about preparing for an American university, and I will hand it over to Jennifer, who's from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, in just a bit. And then afterwards, we're going to have a short student panel from students who have studied in the US and can answer your questions from their firsthand experience of what it was like being a Brit going over across the pond to study. And then at the end, we're going to take some general questions that you can address to both Jennifer and the student panel. So we do ask that you hold any questions that you have, any general questions, until the end. Just so you know, there will be a recording of this sent to you later, so you will have that as a resource to refer to. Okay, so before we get started and I hand it over to Jennifer, I am just going to introduce who we are. So if you haven't heard of us, we're the US-UK Fulbright Commission. We were established over 70 years ago by this handsome gentleman, Senator Fulbright, in the aftermath of World War II. And Senator Fulbright thought, well, one of the best ways to avoid a third World War is to promote peace through educational exchange. So the Fulbright Commission was born, and we promote educational exchange through our Fulbright scholarships that are on postgraduate level, as well as our advising team, which supports both undergrad and graduate students that want to study in the US. And that forms what we call Education USA at Fulbright. And so we're part of the US State Department network. There's over 400 centers all over the world. And we provide free, unbiased advice about studying in the US. So we're here to support in that process. For many of you, that process is done now, which is very exciting. So now we're here just to help support you in your next steps, and in particular in just preparing on studying in the US and what that's going to look like, and how to make the most of your time while you're there. So that is it from me. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and she'll take it from there.
Hi, everybody. So nice to be on this webinar today. I'm just going to share my screen here quickly. Okay, so can you see? It's good? Okay, great. As Sarah said, congratulations. You are admitted. This is a really, really exciting time for you, and I'm really honored to be sharing some information that I hope you'll find helpful. Clearly on this first slide, it says after and before. You are about to embark on a really profound experience, and many of us who work in the field of international education and in higher education are so excited because it's something we've done before ourselves, and we know what a transformative experience it can be for you. Let's see. Okay, so who am I? My name is Jennifer Gruenewald, and I'm Director of International Student and Scholar Services at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I've been in this field for over 20 years and working with students from all around the world, and I really love my work because I get to be part of making US universities more internationally diverse and with a more global perspective. I'd also like to share that I am the parent of an 18-year-old going off to college, and I have just spent 2 days in parent orientation, and it's really overwhelming and really scary for everybody. And I share some of your concerns, your anxiety, and your enthusiasm. And so it's a big change for everyone. So I just want to start by saying where you'll be going. You'll have different experiences depending on where you're going. Some of you may be going to a public institution that is funded by the state, partially funded by the state where you'll be attending school. And some may be going to private institutions that are fully funded privately. You may be at an institution that has 1,000 people or an institution that has 45,000 people. Again, the services and the experience may be different. Likely will be different, or you may be in a very large city or a very small town. But regardless on where you're attending school, I hope you find that in today's presentation you'll have some takeaways, one or two ideas of how you can plan and how you can prepare yourself for attending a U.S. university. You'll see here I talked American University, and then down here I have college, and I know that can be kind of confusing. Our terminology in the U.S. is we talk about college, university, school, all kind of wrapped into one. Students will say to each other, where are you going to college? Or parents will ask their nieces and nephews, where you plan to go to school? So college, school always means university. In the U.S., there is a difference. Most people don't know what the difference is between a college and a university, but people who attend university say they're going to college. People who attend college say they're going to university. So for practical purposes, they're interchangeable in the U.S. The degree that you'll be studying in is what you might call the course, and it's also called a major. People might ask, what's your major? What are you planning to study? What's your degree? So that might be new to you. Your class, you might call a module. Going to class, people talk about going to class, going to school, that's attending their courses, or what you might say modules. Tests and exams are assessment. They don't really say assessment in the US. And typically with many courses, many classes, and we say courses for class too, many courses, you will have a discussion section attached to that. Excuse me, and that will be what you might call a seminar or tutorial. Your roommate in the morning might say, I'm going to school, I'm going to class. It means they're going to their module, they're going to the university. That's what their plan is. Okay, next. Okay, so for your planning, the Fulbright Commission pre-departure orientation page has a lot of great information on it. The website is your friend. You will find really, really solid information that will help you. Some of what I plan to say might be repeated, but there are things that are worth repeating. But websites are going to be something that you use very frequently in the coming months. It may be overwhelming, but there's a lot of information on university websites that they will be referring you to. So I'm talking about specifically university-specific planning, your arrival, your involvement, and how to be successful, and then some personal planning and thinking about the decisions you'll have to make, how you make decisions, and just thinking about how you accept challenges. Okay, so planning for your arrival. Since I've worked in an international office for so many years, I know that there are times when we get an email from a student saying, I'm at the airport, how do I get to campus? Or I'll call, or they arrive in our office and they don't have housing yet. Seems obvious, but really important to arrange transportation to campus and find housing right away. You probably already have that, I hope that that's not a concern for you right now. Lots of schools will offer an airport pickup. Most schools will expect you to register for that, to schedule that. Sometimes students assume that if there's an airport pickup on a certain day, they're part of it. So it's always a good idea to check with your school and make sure that if there's a registration for an airport pickup, that you have registered for it. If you haven't found housing, most campuses will have on-campus housing offices and off-campus housing offices that are separate. So that would be a good place to start. Connect with your roommates. We say roommates or suite mates, depending on where you'll be staying. You may have one or more. It's a good idea. You probably have the name of that person already or some information from your school of when that will be provided. Just checking in with them on social media. It doesn't have to be long, but a quick hello, maybe some information on when you plan to arrive to the US, looking forward to meeting them. It will help break the ice for when you arrive. You may or may not have multiple orientations, but it's likely you'll have to sign up for them and do something active on your part to ensure that you are placed in an orientation. You will definitely have an orientation for international students. Likely there is something from the university, the school or college that you're in, the department. So again, read through everything that's been sent to you. I know it's a lot, but there will likely be information and some action items, some things that you need to do. At many schools, there will be a placement test. Placement test is to assess your level, usually in math and English, to place you in the right sequence. Even if you're not majoring in math or English and you're in engineering or business, it's likely that you would take an English or math placement test to place you in a proper general education requirement. The shopping lists. You probably are making some lists at home, and you should be thinking about what is allowed in the dorms and also how early you can ship things. Lots of students said things in advance using Amazon. Also, the size of the beds are different in many dormitories. It's called a twin XL, and standard sheets won't fit, and likely your sheets from home will not fit on the beds in the dorm. So please pay attention to what you are allowed to have in the residence hall. They may call it a residence hall or dormitory, and what you can send and what you're planning to bring. Navigating the campus is certainly something that you'll do the first few weeks that you're at the university, but there are likely maps online and also maybe virtual tours that you can look at, and just to get a sense of how the campus is. And depending on where you're going, the transportation will vary greatly. On some campuses, they're so small you walk everywhere, and they may be in a small town and there is no public transportation in that town. Some campuses may be larger and will have like some on-campus transportation that students use. Some campuses might have special passes for students to use the public transportation that's paid through some of your fees, and you use that for free. Other campuses will give you information on how to use public transportation. I will say that public transportation is sadly very behind the transportation that you have in the UK. It's likely that there will not be any kind of metro or train where you're going. There will be buses, but they may not be as efficient as buses that you're used to. So I think it's a good idea to check that stuff out and before you get there, just so there aren't so many surprises, because there will be many. Lastly, I'd like to say just to try and start making a budget, because money will be flying around when you first get there, and there will be a lot of expenses, and it's good to just kind of have a sense of what you'll be spending your money on. I'd like to suggest that you also talk with your families about who's paying for what before you arrive, because sometimes there can be some assumptions of what costs you're covering from your savings or from some employment you may have had, what costs your family is covering. Also, what costs the school is covering if you are receiving some kind of scholarship. So I think it's really good to map that all out, write it all down, so you have a good sense of what's coming. Okay, so you arrive at your university. One of the first things you'll do is probably check in with the international office and attend an orientation. You will likely take placement tests. You will meet with an academic advisor, especially if you haven't selected your coursework already, your classes. And there are multiple advisors at U.S. universities. There may be an academic advisor specific to your area of study, or if you're considering a couple different areas of studies, there's a cross-study academic advisor. Advising is really big in the U.S., and it's really important for you to know that there are a lot of advising resources on campuses. When you arrive, you probably will arrive right when school starts, and so you'll go to class right away after you have your schedule. You'll be attending classes, and then your health and well-being. And the arrival really does kind of challenge students' well-being for many students. The food that you can get just isn't the same as at home. And students may have some issues when they first arrive or in the first few months. Maybe their stomach just doesn't feel right, or maybe they have issues with weight. Maybe they lose a lot of weight or they gain some weight and they just don't feel good right away. So making sure that you're eating nutritious foods, trying to find things that agree with your body. Food in the U.S., and especially on campuses, can be unhealthy and something that you're not used to. So just, pretend your mom or someone who cares about you is reminding you to eat nutritiously when you're at school. Sleep is critical. You'll be sleeping in a completely new environment with new noises, and people may be really physically close to you, like in a bunk bed, and this may be different for you. But sleep is so important for your physical and your mental health and for your adjustment. And it'll be difficult at the beginning, but again, pretend your parent is reminding you. A good night's sleep is really going to matter in making sure that you have a soft landing, that you are arriving and able to do what you need to do right away to have a good experience when you first arrive. Like sleep, exercise is going to help your mental health and your physical health, and schools will be very, very enthusiastic about telling you about all of the different options to be active and get involved on campuses. And then also connecting with friends, making new friends. It's really hard, but it's also everybody's in the same boat, so it can happen kind of quickly. I put a couple of just Pinterest pages here. I did a lot of just looking around social media, and pretty much after you look at a few of them, they all tend to say the same thing about your health and well-being. And that, again, I'll repeat myself, eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising, going to class, and reaching out to friends are like the keys to initial success when you arrive. And it's much harder to redirect yourself towards those things if you don't do them right at the beginning. It's never too late, but I really recommend getting on board with those things right away. Okay, so planning for your involvement. There will be so many events when you get there, it will be overwhelming, and you will already be overwhelmed by orientation, moving into a new place, meeting all these new people. But this is the time when the universities really want people to feel like there are many options for being involved. There will be welcome events in your housing. There will be welcome events at the international office. There will be welcome events campus-wide. There will be welcome events in departments. And so just keep your eye out for these kinds of opportunities. You don't have to stay long, but to try and get yourself to participate in some of these co-curricular activities is really helpful. The housing will have activities. There will be sports options, intramural sports. There will be clubs, student organizations, and there's rec centers that are beyond just physical fitness, like bowling and ping pong. It's really big at U.S. universities to make sure there are lots of opportunities for these activities that support your well-being and your sense of belonging and building community when you're at university. There are also these things called learning communities, and learning communities, you may have to enroll in them before you arrive, but there might be some opportunities after you arrive, and they're usually in residence halls, and it's like structured communities for people to study together and maybe attend some classes together. Undergraduate research is really a growing trend at U.S. universities, and there are opportunities for undergraduates to participate in faculty and researcher research on campuses. It's another excellent way to supplement your academics and feel part of the academic community at the university. There will be service learning opportunities, volunteering opportunities, where there will be an office on campus that facilitates some of these activities for students. You will likely be offered a mentor. Mentoring programs vary. Sometimes they're upperclassmen, sometimes they're international students. For international students, sometimes they're domestic and international, but mentoring programs will likely be an option for you, as will freshman seminars. There's a lot of university, there's a whole field of study that looks at student arrival and student success and student retention, and all of these things that I've talked about really support your academic success. When I was at my daughter's orientation this week, it was very clear, and they really articulated that an old model was kind of to weed students out when they first arrived at university to try and just, keep the excellent students, the ones who could make it when they first arrived. And that's really an old model. Universities really want their students to be successful and stay. And there are so many resources to help students do that. I don't think I mentioned Greek life. It may be something you're familiar with, may not. It's on some campuses, it's very prominent. On others, it is not. Greek life is our clubs that are usually on campus but not officially part of the university. And there's a word called rush. If you hear rushing, I'm rushing, that means that somebody's like applying to be part of a Greek organization. And they can vary from service organizations to some have big reputations for a lot of socializing and partying. Some are more academic, some are more community outreach. So if that's something of interest to you and your school has it, you might want to check it out. Lastly, on employment. Employment in the U.S. is really seen, on-campus employment is seen as possibly part of your campus experience. There are usually many jobs on campus, and many students work on campus. At my daughter's orientation, they said if you apply to university housing, the dining services, there's not even an interview. You apply, you say what your schedule is, that's when you work. They need students to work on campus. It's a good way to meet students from different areas of the university, students of different ages and different majors. For international students, there isn't an off-campus option. Sorry, there is on campus, but not off campus. And your school will talk to you more about that. So again, planning for your success. There will be so many centers on campus to help you. Pretty much, most faculty recommend that with your first paper, you take it to a writing center on campus to have someone help go over it with you and look for areas where you may want to improve, explain, rework the structure of a paper that you're presenting. There will be a tutoring center, there will be study groups. The workload might be different than what you expect. At many universities, there is homework, like regular homework, turning assignments in weekly. And then at that same university, there may be two tests or 3 tests for the semester. And but a student employee who works in our office who just studied abroad in the UK, she said there was a lot of time for her at her university in the UK to prepare for assessments. And we don't have those in the US. We don't have a study week. We don't have, I mean, most schools don't. At my university, there's one study day before the final exams. And so there will be expectations that you're very involved. At many schools, you'll have a credit system, and the credits are a typical class that meets 3 times a week for an hour each time is 3 credits. And for every credit you're in class, they expect for you to do 1 hour outside of class. And so if you're in 3 credits, you're at 3 hours in class, 3 hours outside of class. And so it's very important to remember that there's workload expectations outside of class, and they may be different from what you think. There will be a student health clinic on every campus. There will be a fitness center, the international office, and you can also look for help when you're thinking about your own success in talking to a resident assistant. These are people that live in the dormitories or residence halls with you, and they're a very good resource. Most campuses will have something that is called something like a student accessibility center. And these are centers that are available to all students, and they help with students that need accommodations. And some students may not have needed accommodations in their secondary education, but in post-secondary, they discover they need some accommodations. These accommodations range from help with note-taking to giving longer time for tests and assessments, and to, if there's sign language interpreting or special accommodations with the print materials. The international office is going to be an excellent resource for you. They want to be your home base. They want to be there to help you when you first arrive. They want to be there as a source of information throughout your studies. You'll probably have more interaction with them at the beginning of your studies and less as things going on until the end. There will be an advisor that you work with, maybe not one, maybe you see who's ever available, but there will be somebody there. They will plan activities. And they are also there to help you with your adjustment. And if there's something that they can't do, they will make the appropriate referral. They will also help with figuring out how to work with faculty. So, personal planning, I'm going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. Personal planning is really important, and it's a good idea to think now about how you handle challenges. What kind of challenges that you faced in the past and how you handled them. How you make decisions. What kind of decisions have you had to make? Where were you successful in making decisions? You'll be in a completely new environment, and you won't have the same resources available to you for facing these challenges and making decisions. And it's really important that you give yourself time to process what's going on, and time to think about what works best for you. So I've just put a couple things down. What will you do if you don't know how to use the washing machine? Believe it or not, the washing machine tends to be a fairly big issue. I've actually been called at home by a student saying he could not get his clothes cleaned in the US washing machines. That was a while ago when we didn't have front loaders. They were all top loaders, and he couldn't figure them out. Also, students go to the store, and there's probably similar amount of choices in the UK, but there are so many choices for the kinds of detergents. There's aisles, like long, big aisles of detergents and softeners and all kinds of things that even for domestic students, they just really haven't paid attention to. So what do you do when you can't figure that out? Who are you going to ask? This next one, I want to read the whole thing because this is going to be your experience in many situations. You can't open a bank account because they say you need a social security number, but you don't have a social security number, and you can't get a social security number, and you don't know what a social security number is. It's just an example how you're going to kind of be caught where you are trying to do one thing, but you can't do that thing unless you have another thing. And it's going to feel like a runaround at the beginning because there's different terminology and different language that people are using. In situations like this, the international office is going to be your best bet to help clarify some of these issues. And then Also, what are you going to do if you don't know what to do? I was noticing in the orientation that I was in yesterday that there was a real big focus on your student needs to choose what's right for them. And for a young adult, sometimes you just don't know. And so what are you going to do when you don't know what to do? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to discuss things with? What's your plan when you really don't know what to do? How much time are you going to give yourself to decide? I really think you can take time sometimes to make decisions, and sometimes you can't. You don't have a lot of time to make decisions. And then also, in a more literal sense, when you don't know what to do, like you're in your room, your dorm room, you don't have class, you've studied, there's nobody around, what are you going to do? And that's likely going to happen. And so it's nice to make a plan for what are you going to do when you don't know what to do. What will you do if you and your roommate don't get along? This probably will happen at some point. Some schools offer a roommate contract that you can go over with your roommate and kind of like in a lighthearted way discuss like, okay, when we have a problem with cleanliness, this is how we're going to deal with it. Or when we have a problem with this, this is how we're going to deal with it. And then when things get difficult, you can say, okay, should we pull out the contract and look at what we said, to try and just keep the communication going. Your roommate has his or her boyfriend or girlfriend sleeping over in your room. Yeah, or has illegal drugs in the room. I mean, these are kind of extreme, but especially the illegal drugs part. But what I want to say is that your resident advisor, the upper class person in your dormitory, will be a really good resource, and they're very good with confidentiality. And when you talk to somebody, you can say, "I'd like this to be confidential," and they can help you strategize. What are you going to do if you have to get home from a party and it's very late and you're all alone? That comes to safety. How are you going to stay safe? So let me move to the next slide. Just planning for your wellness and safety. Staying safe on campus is going to be something that's really talked about a lot at your orientations. There likely will be services for transportation. My daughter's going to a school with 44,000 students, and I just learned there's a service that's, I forget what it's called, but it's basically you can schedule or call, and two people in vests that are reflective at night will walk you from your class to your dorm until 1 a.m, or from a party to your dorm. People don't want anybody walking alone at night. You can plan to walk with friends or your classmates. The campus police will be a good resource for staying safe. Most universities will have a campus police office. And then the international office and the campus police will be really good with scams. And all students sometimes are scammed. International students tend to be targets lately for scams where you get an email saying it's the FBI, they're calling, you have to report right away. Always go to your international office, because these kinds of things are happening and they are scams. Your wellness and safety, you have the clinic, the health clinic. You'll likely get health insurance. Just like to say, the health insurance is super expensive. I mean, healthcare is super expensive in the US, not at all like you have in the UK. And your school will require that you have health insurance. Again, fitness, diet, and exercise. And I put the heart here for your health and wellness, but just to remind you that there are family and friends at home that really love you, and they want you to be well. They want you to take care of yourself and not have anything bad happen to you. And that's exactly how we feel in the office, of the International Student Office. Oh, so sorry. I lost that. What did I do here? There's not too many. I'll just go right. Share. Just making my way through real quick to the very end. New laws. Your visa will be covered by the international office. There's a drinking age in the US of 21. Some schools will have completely dry campuses. Some schools will have alcohol for students who are over the age of 21. Really important that you pay attention to this, and drinking culture might be different from yours too, because since the drinking age is older, there is some wildness on students that are having their first experiences with drinking. And so it might be seem kind of young to you. You may have seen that already. And some states have legal marijuana, but there will be an age of use. And of course, there's a difference between state and federal laws and drugs. Driving, you will be required to have auto insurance, and some states may require an international driver's license. Getting a ticket can be expensive, very expensive. I'd also like to say that alcohol, if you're caught on campus with alcohol, it can be extremely costly. I learned at my daughter's school it can cost close to $1,000 if they find you are too inebriated to take care of yourself. They'll put you in a detox center. That's $800. You'll get a ticket for $300, and there was one other ticket, so it was over $1,000. There will also likely be a Title IX training that you're required to do. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits sex or gender-based discrimination, including sexual harassment. You'll likely have to do that on campus, and if you don't do it, you won't be able to register the next semester. Okay, last, have an amazing experience. It's amazing and wonderful what you're doing. It will change your life, and you will be better for it. You need to plan that everything will work out, even though you might be really scared right now. And how you think about your new home and your new life matters. You can focus on what's good, accept challenges, because there will be challenges. You will have other people having expectations for you that you didn't anticipate, and that might be hard. You'll need to think about how you make decisions and advocate for yourself. You'll need to be really patient with yourself, and you will get homesick, and you will think certain things are much better at home than in the US, and your mind will change a lot. And that patience is really important, and it's an adventure. And lastly, good luck and really safe travels, and your universities can't wait to meet you. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was really helpful, all of the information that you presented. So now we're going to make our way over into the student panel. And so I'm going to have Kiki, Luke, and Lynn join us now. And I'll just introduce them. So Luke graduated a year ago from Williams College, which is in Massachusetts. Lynn is a current student at Middlebury College in Vermont. And Kiki is an alumni of Stanford University. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. So there will be an opportunity for anyone who wants to ask questions in the Q&A box. And for now, I'll just shoot off a few questions, and then feel free to answer as you'd like. And for our participants, feel free to shoot off a question in the Q&A. So I'm going to start off with just asking, what were your first few weeks like at your respective university?
I could go. So at Stanford, we had the kind of international students kind of beginning, which was separate from the US students. So we had about a week where we got to know all the other international students, and that was actually wonderful because it gave you a really good base with other people who clearly had never, potentially studied in the US before. And we went on different excursions to the beach and had lots and lots of time to find the right, the best side of the bed in the dorm room and put up your stuff. And yeah, so I think I was quite nervous. I had actually never been to Stanford before because I couldn't afford to go and do a college tour. So I was a bit nervous to see whether, I would gel on a personal basis, even though I knew it was amazing. And I think that first day is going to be tough, but the second day, especially when you've got the first week, there's so much happening that you just dive in and become quite comfortable quite quickly.
Yeah. Go on, Lynn, if you want to.
That's all right, Luke, go for it.
I totally agree. It's a really exciting, but at the same time, pretty overwhelming time. And there is so much going on in town. I mean, so I went to a very small school in which there was only 500 students per year. And I probably met all 500 people in the space of about 3 days, which is extremely difficult to remember people's names, and it's overwhelming. And the reality is, as internationals, people really want to get to know you. because it's really exciting, and in some cases people have gone to schools where there are no internationals, and so a lot of people will want to get to know you, be your friend, and so on. And that's the most wonderful thing, and it helps you to really get feeling comfortable and feeling like you're in the right place, and feeling like you have made the right choice to go abroad. But at the same time, it's somewhat daunting, and for me it was the first time when people started to pinpoint difference within me, i.e. that I'm not from America, and that I don't really know where they're from, what their background is, and so on. And that can be a little bit unsettling. And so I just found that I really had to take some time to myself to sort of appreciate that this is a completely new experience for me, and in many ways people will treat you with the best intentions, but it may make you unsettled. And so you've really got to give time for yourself in those first few weeks, to appreciate and acknowledge the sort of challenge that you're endeavouring on to be an international student.
Yeah.
For me, my first few weeks, I also had quite a long international student orientation, and I'm really grateful for that. I'd say just some good advice in general is to make friends with international students, because for me, they have been very constant presences in my life. It's really comforting to have people that can relate to being in a new place and being in the US and all the new things that come with it. And yeah, just people I remember being on the bus with, the shuttle from the airport to my college, that I'm still friends with today. So that's really nice. For me, I think I was just really excited, and it was all kind of just a blur of me being super excited about everything. I remember the shopping period and trying to figure out what classes to take. I would really recommend, is this for me? I would really recommend going for it when it comes to taking a class that's really different from anything you've ever known. It's a really nice thing that comes with going to the US and doing a liberal arts education, that you can, my first semester, I took a class in computer science, which I was not good at, but I'm glad I did it because I learned that I'm not good at it, and just kind of learned something I didn't know before. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask. I would say when it comes to, you'll probably, as was mentioned before, you'll have student activities, fairs, where different groups and clubs on campus will tell you about what they do. I joined an a cappella group the first few weeks that I was there, and I'm really glad that I joined a group because it gave me access to people from a variety of different years. It had seniors and juniors and sophomores. And so I was immediately sort of, I had people to have meals with. I had people that knew stuff about the college to give me advice. And that's something that I'm really grateful that I did.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear about your different experiences. And what would you say, or would you say that you faced any kind of culture shock, or what were some of kind of big differences that you noticed studying in the US as compared to your experiences in the UK?
Challenges.
Yeah, any kind of what were the differences that you noticed, or any challenges or culture shock that you faced?
I mean, from my perspective, I did know, obviously, many of you will know that a lot of your friends will be going to UK universities where there will be, everyone's heard of Pressures Weeks in the UK schools. And so I knew that obviously in America, you're underage, that's not what you're going to be doing, but it's really, really dry. So for instance, when you go, you'll be getting calls from your friends in the UK saying, oh, we're having this crazy party and blah, blah, blah. You'll be like, that's absolutely the opposite of what you'll be doing the first 2 weeks. So I would just prepare yourself for that. And it's great because it means that everybody is getting together on much more kind of school orientated events, which means it's a lot more talking to each other. And you're not just downing drinks and like going out to the pub, you're actually doing activities together, which for me was really great because I'm not a big party animal anyway. And it can be a little bit disconcerting though, because you at the very beginning you're just faced with this very clear indication of, okay, my experience is going to be completely different to my UK friends' experience. But it does like ease up as you go along. I actually joined a sorority later on, which is its own kind of experience, you know, great for some people, horrible for some other people, because it can be quite cliquey, which I wasn't a particular fan of. But in general, I think that US universities really lead you by the hand in terms of your becoming comfortable, knowing where everything is, putting you in situations where you can make friends easily, putting you at ease, making sure you never have to do anything that, you know, is outside of your comfort zone if you don't so wish. So I really think they do that so well in the US.
Should I go?
Yeah, go on, Lynn. Okay.
So I would say the three main things for me were, first of all, just American culture. The slang is a really big thing. There's a lot of terms that I did not know. There's a lot of things that mean different things, but that's just time. You'll learn what means what and what people don't know when you say, like jumper, very simple word, but a lot of people just don't know what that means. It's a sweater. And then two really big things for me were, first of all, coming from a working class background, going to Middlebury, there was majority of the students there are on no financial aid. And so there's a lot of wealth, which is something that I wasn't used to at all, having grown up sort of amongst people in a similar situation to me. So it can really feel, it can just be difficult, I would say. There's a variety of emotions, but it comes up in different ways in the hobbies that people have, which, you know, for example, I did not go skiing when I was younger because that's kind of being in London, number one, and, you know, just kind of more expensive hobbies. Even outing sometimes can involve having more money to do certain things. So I think it's important there to remember that you're not alone, although it can feel like it, and you adjust. And then my other really big thing, which was a big struggle not only during my first year, but also sophomore year, was race. I mean, so I'm Black, I'm mixed race, and that means something, well, it doesn't mean something different, but there are a lot of stereotypes that come with that. And I felt that I was very often put in a box. And I found it very difficult for a long while to deal with sort of being, I think Black students make up 3% of the population on my campus. And so there were a lot of kind of things that came with the stereotypes that were applied to me that took a long time for me to deal with. And it definitely helped me to, you know, reach out to relevant groups. I mean, this applies to different people depending on what your identity is, but you'll never be the only one with that identity. And there are usually meetings, if not clubs and groups for you. So for me, going to like the Black Students Union and just meeting people who know what it feels like to be a Black student at a college like mine was really helpful to feeling like I wasn't alone and the problem wasn't with me. Yeah.
I don't want to sort of add on anything sort of Kiki and Lina said. They said it really well. There's another part of the cultural shock that I didn't quite anticipate, was that every college has a very different type of culture to it as well. So not just being in America, and that in itself is a shock and a difficult thing to do, but every college has, I don't know, like the things that people wear, like dictate sort of, or determine what sort of groups people associate with, or similar to what Lynn said, the sort of hobbies that people have, or the sports that people play, have a certain reputation on campus. All of these things differ between campus to campus. So being a football player on one campus is a very different thing to another campus. Being a squash player is a different thing. Being in an a cappella group or doing a science degree, all of these things mean very different things in every campus. And so you kind of got to be cognizant of these things that are going on, just because it's really hard to pick up on what these things mean. And I think maybe some American boarding school systems might have prepared people for those sort of cultural dynamics, but I think in most cases it is new for everyone. And so just being aware that these dynamics are going on and how they're affecting people's behavior, how they're affecting people's well-being and happiness on campus as well is a pretty important thing that nobody really preps you for. And it's not really included in any orientation. It's like how people are perceived or what X, Y, and Z mean. And so just being cognizant and aware of those things going on around you as through your first weeks or months is a pretty useful thing to do for your own benefit. Not for anything in particular, but just so that you don't feel confused or bewildered by what's going on.
Yeah, that's all really good points. And I mean, you can just hear based off of your stories as well, how much you can mature and grow so independent through studying in the US and kind of taking that leap, and how each of you handled those different things and your experiences that were different than what you thought and things like that. So kind of just to finish off with the panel section, you have already given some advice, but what would be your number one piece of advice for students who are headed to the US for university?
I can start with this one. It's the same thing that I always say, which is just you will be given so many opportunities, and they really do multiply as they're seized. Even small things like staying after class to ask a professor a question can lead to a dinner at their house, can lead to an internship opportunity. Going to a talk that you see a poster for that sounds vaguely interesting can lead you to learn about a topic that you had no idea about and you're suddenly very passionate about, and feeds into your vision for what you want to do or study in future. As I said, there's so many clubs and groups and opportunities. You know, there's nothing that you have to commit to. You can join something and see whether it's for you. But I would say the most important thing is, while balancing it with your own well-being and not feeling the need to join every single thing and push yourself, as Luke said earlier on, it really is important to take that time to just be by yourself and sort of return to yourself. But take opportunities, and your universities, your colleges have so much money to offer as well. They have so many resources. If there's an opportunity when it comes to some sort of internship where you would need to, I don't know, like need a travel expense or to fly somewhere, or if there's some sort of research you'd like to do, or just anything, it's always worth asking. You have the international office, you'll have so many points of contact. If you have a dean of students, they're really helpful as well. Just ask and do things, but also look after yourself. Yeah.
I think that was brilliant. I thought that was, much better than anything I was going to say. But generally, I think what's really important, especially when you go to America, is don't feel that you need to be anybody else than yourself. Everybody is going to be different from you, and everybody is going to be trying, because it's a university, and especially in the States, there's this feeling of, okay, now I'm at college, now I'm going to create myself. This is going to be the person I'm going to be for the rest of my life, so it better be good. Don't feel like you need to absorb that way of thinking, because actually it can be really counterintuitive. You guys are all brilliant. You don't need to try and fit in. Everyone's going to love you for the way you are, because you're all brilliant. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done all this extra work to go to the US. And they'll find you really cool anyway, because you're like unique and different. And you've probably got an accent. And if you haven't, it's still cool that you've lived somewhere else. So just remember that you don't need to fit yourself around what everyone else is expecting. Be yourself and relax into that, and you'll have a much more rewarding experience, I think.
Yeah, and I think for me, and it took me a few years into my degree to really do this correctly, but try and remember why you went to the US in the first place, and why that was the reason, that the choice that you made. And for me, it was always to explore and do different things intellectually and culturally than I had done before. So I didn't want to lock myself down to one subject or to one career path. And that's always what I knew what was possible with the US. And so I wanted to make sure that as I was going through each year that I kept exploring. And as Lynn was saying earlier, like, take a class that you might do really bad in just because it's pretty interesting and like it's fun to try. And there really is, when you've got X number of classes to take over the course of your 4 years, one class that isn't an A grade doesn't really matter. And you can actually have a lot of fun doing some pretty quirky classes just to sort of broaden your horizons. And similarly with all your summers, as Lynn said, universities have so many opportunities to do research projects, or to do travel projects, to do your own independent things. And I don't know, you can go, I did a study abroad program and I went literally across the whole world, and that was funded by the university. And like, there are lots of opportunities like this where you can really just shape it in a way that suits you, and you don't have to also plan too much about it, and let it come. So first year, to take it as it comes in terms of picking subjects. Don't try and plan for your job 4 years down the line. It's just going to change so much by then. Don't think about your major in your first year. Just really be as exploratory as you could possibly be, because I think you'll find that you'll end up intellectually in a very different place to where you started, and it's a really valuable path to go down to let that exploration happen.
All very, very good advice. Great. So we just have a few more minutes, but I do want to leave some space for people to ask some just kind of general questions. So I'm going to have Jennifer join us. And then if you have any questions, please just enter them into the Q&A box. So either for the student panel or for Jennifer and what she presented. So just type it in the Q&A, and any kind of very specific questions, please hold that for another time. We do have an advising line that's open Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1:30 to 4:30, and we also have an advising inbox that we check every single day that we're in the office, and we do get back to you within a week on that. So any kind of specific questions, do feel free to reach out to us, but anything general we could take now, if anyone has any, and if not, we can wrap up. So let's see if anyone does. Maybe we were just extremely thorough. Okay. Well, we are already at time, actually, so that's fine. It looks like we did cover everything very well. And if you're too shy to ask a question, again, like I said, you can feel free to reach out to us by email or by phone, and you can find that information on our Fulbright website. And we're here for you. This is what we do. Our job is to help you get to the U.S. and help you cope with the U.S. And so for those of you who are headed off, we just want to say congratulations again for getting accepted, for taking the leap. We're so excited for you and hope that you'll have an amazing experience. And do feel free to reach out if ever you need additional support. And thank you so much to Jennifer. Such a wonderful presentation with a lot of helpful information. And thank you so much to Lynn, Luke, and Kiki for joining us as well and just giving your experience. So thank you so much again, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.